I wanted to go ahead and try to start this video off higher energy, and it's just like, no. I'm recovering after getting sick. That's probably the reason as to why my voice might sound the way that it does. As of the time of me recording this, I ended up getting sick the week prior, and I have been trying to get better ever since. I'm a lot better than I was last week at least, but it did have me thinking that I need to go ahead and do an entire video on what happens whenever I get sick, and like the evolution of me getting sick, including the random amount of time that I did not. But that's gonna end up being its own video. Anyway, vitamin C drop. Let's go. So as I am in the midst of collecting all of my overall trauma and like personal family trauma in order to create the art project that I said I was going to be working on this year, which I am, but a lot of the plans that I originally had kind of got sidetracked because I ended up getting sick. But something else that I wanted to go ahead and do with said project is see what I can do to essentially have it on here as well. Outside of create the videos and post them on the other app. And then like when I have a collection of the videos, post them as shorts or put them as their own video in an entire compilation. So in the meantime, I'm currently using said art project as a way of controlling the content of my channel. It's better for me to use the project itself as a way of telling, okay, these are the next few videos I'm going to be making within this amount of time frame. Because it keeps me thinking ahead, and it also allows me to plan ahead better. Case in point, I ended up making like 3? After last week's video, I have 3 separate video ideas that I've already done complete outlines for. And that's just for one part of the entire project. That was a long-winded way of trying to do an introduction to today's video, which is actually talking about how Fruits Basket is probably the best way to teach people about generational trauma and generational curses. Because not everybody understands exactly what it means to be under a generational curse or to have generational trauma. Now, of course, as per the usual when it comes to these things, it was originally a TikTok that brought this specifically to my attention, and that is Fruits Basket itself is about generational trauma. The person in the TikTok specifically said that the anime Fruits Basket, the remake of the anime Fruits Basket, is more akin to Love Actually, which I haven't seen, and I'm not interested to watch. But instead of being about several different types of love, it's about a bunch of interpersonal trauma. Now, to catch people up on Fruits Basket, the anime remake, and heavy spoiler territory for people that actually want to watch it. The anime itself is supposed to be following this girl named Toru Honda. Honda? This nasaliness in my voice is making me concerned about my overall pronunciation of Japanese names. And her trying to get along with Kyo. Oh my gosh, no, because his name means frickin' winter. How did I forget Yuki? And her discovering essentially the secret that she wasn't supposed to discover because she, like, ditzily messed around and found out. So now not only does she know about the family secret, but now she is essentially uh kind of like blackmailed into not saying anything about the family secret. Like she would even do that. She wasn't the type. And like that's about as much as I need to go ahead and talk about because then we actually get to what the family secret actually is. And it's not even Toru's family, it's someone completely different. Someone that she ended up seeing in her class. Specifically, Kyo, Yuki, what was the other man's name? Everyone that is in essentially the Soma family. They have an entire secret that they were not supposed to let get out of the Soma family. And apparently, not everyone in the family even knows about it. The way that I wrote it is that the Soma family has a huge don't touch me magic that allows the members under said curse to attract, talk to, and listen to, and control their respective Chinese zodiac animal. Apart from the Chinese zodiac dragon, that's the seahorse. They also have the ability to turn into said animal when under extreme physical stress or touched by the opposite gender, unless the person of the opposite gender themselves are also possessed by by a Chinese zodiac spirit. It would have been better if you just watched the anime, to be fair, but that is a lot to be trying to handle. And similar to the story of the Chinese zodiac, there is also essentially a god or someone that is possessed by the god spirit in that story, and the cat spirit. Now, to put this into as digestible as I possibly can, recognizing the fact that I am still having to deal with like my brain beginning to work again after being sick, and these are notes that I've written at least like 3 weeks ago. So this is where we get into explaining what generational curse and generational trauma is. Yes, I have a stir that is slightly broken that I'm currently using as a way to keep me where I need to be in my book. Let's move on. The way that I wrote it in my notes was being possessed by the zodiac spirit is the curse, while being controlled by the god spirit is the thing that creates the trauma. Essentially, the god spirit, or the person that was possessed by the god spirit in the anime, Akito, ended up becoming the head of the family. And it has always been told throughout her entire life that her main role was to essentially control, at the very least, the ones that are possessed by the zodiac spirit, but at most the entire family. Basically, with the amount of power that she was essentially given at birth, her ego got inflated, and without anything to essentially try to balance that out, she started becoming more of a problem. Right, heads up, the head of the family is actually a she, and she was not supposed to go ahead and show the fact that she was a she. At the very least, when it comes to public appearances, I think. There's probably some sort of information that I can actually find about that. But I'm not trying to look for it because it's kind of useless at this point. But basically, Akito, the head of the family, also the person that was possessed by the god spirit, in the Chinese zodiac story ended up becoming the essential missing or broken stare. The main problem. None of the members that were possessed by the zodiac spirit had free will, nor were they able to choose a life that was outside of the family compound. And it wasn't Shiro. What was his name? God dang it. Shigure. Even if you decide to live outside of the estate, outside of the Soma estate, you were still required as a member of the Soma family to still obey the rules. There are just not as many people around to enforce said family rules. In the anime, the only person that wasn't bounded by the Soma curse or the zodiac curse was the person that was originally possessed by the rooster spirit. And seeing as though he was not bound by the curse, but still stayed around for other reasons, he wasn't allowed to interact with the others much, if at all. I mean, I think in the anime, you don't end up finding out about him until, like, what, around the end of the second season? Beginning of the third? It was around one of their it was around one of their summer breaks. It's time for me to pop in another vitamin C drop. I almost forgot what these were. Now that we talked specifically about exactly what the curse itself was, which is, when it comes to generational curses, it's something that specifically affects an entire family tree. Basically, if it's broken and if everyone dies before the curse itself is broken, the cycle starts anew until someone actually ends up breaking the cycle. Sure, there might end up being people that break away from the cycle. Again, like how the rooster specifically was able to break whatever bound him to the curse itself. But he was also basically manipulated, I believe, into not talking about it and not acting as if anything had changed. But the generational trauma itself comes from the people that are essentially affected by the curse. Akito decided to go ahead and frickin' Ariana Grande. I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. And whatever she didn't like did not go well. Those who spoke specifically to Akito about them loving someone else, mainly other Zodiac members, ended up either getting hurt or ended up having their partner get hurt. Physically and psychologically hurt. To the point where they're like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Or, at worst, they wish they never met the person. Yuki, the person that was possessed by the spirit of the rat, and Kyo, the person that was possessed by the spirit of the cat, were forced to be rivals. Even more so by Akito. Though they quite literally admitted, at least to themselves and to the audience, that they each admired the others. That they each admire the other one. And didn't understand why the other one wanted their lives. And poor Toro was like, oh, if only they understood how much they admired, how much they admire each other, maybe they wouldn't be so hostile toward each other. Though, if you ask me, most of the hostility happens to be just Yuki not wanting to have to deal with anything because of the amount of trauma that he has gone through because of Akito, and Kyo wanting to go ahead and try to actually beat the rat at something so he can have a spot at the table of the zodiac and actually finally be respected. The anime is wild, man. And all of the other ways that Akito specifically mentally and emotionally manipulated other people that were just like excused away because it was done by the head of the family, or no one said anything because they were all too scared to do so because of whatever repercussions were supposed to come after doing so. So you have the overall generational curse that they were all under, something that essentially affected their lives. The way that I wrote it, the same mistake each generation ends up making, following in line or not thinking for themselves, essentially playing the role they were originally assigned by whatever society. And the generational trauma itself is the experienced consequences for not going in a different direction or not thinking for themselves. Again, Toro was like, well, what do you mean by you can't, it doesn't matter? Or what do you mean by you haven't really thought about it? Like what you wanted to do after school. And it's all because after they finish school, because they decided to go to a more public school with other people, they were supposed to go back into the estate after they finished school. And for the person that's possessed by the cat spirit, they're essentially supposed to be locked up until they die. Yeah, they're not really... I said it, it's a wild anime. Now, how you break a generational curse depends on exactly what the curse is itself. And how you handle, like, generational trauma. It's how you would usually handle trauma in general. The main thing there is allowing yourself compassion because you did essentially go through something that was relatively traumatic, if not extremely traumatic, and not trying to rush yourself to be better. Not rushing the process of like healing from trauma itself. Which is different from anyone. So I can't, which is different for everyone. So I can't really say anything about that one. All in all, I did watch the entire anime. I cried. I definitely believe I ended up having something within me that was healed throughout the process of me watching that anime. I highly recommend you watch Fruits Basket because there are definitely times in which it is absolutely refreshing, and then there are times in which it is absolutely triggering. Again, it's a fun watch. It's wild, but like anime usually is. And I'm gonna have to go soon because it is almost time for me to actually start doing my workout, which I have to get back into doing again. So while I try to help myself get better as quickly as my body will allow it, to be fair, that is it for today's video. I have been Toki, your local internet friend. Oh my gosh, what? Residential internet friend. I like that, but it doesn't create a good acronym. However, big... Ooh... Oh no, but now I have to keep that in because it's absolutely hilarious. What I was trying to say before I ended up getting interrupted by a burp that sounded like it came from the pits of some sort of freaking black hole. Although I do kind of like the idea of being called a rift in the system. Anyway, Toki out.